In this video, we'll show one way to set up an A/B experiment for Google Recommendations AI using Google Optimize. For this example, we already have the Optimize tag installed and it's linked to our Google Analytics account. To get started, simply log into your Optimize account and click Create Experience. Give your experiment a name. In this case, we'll be testing similar items versus others you may like models. Enter a sample product detail page and select A/B test. Click Add Variant and we'll call this one Similar. Click Add Variant again and we'll call this one Others You May Like. Click the variant weight and select 0% for the original and 50% for each of the variants. In this case, the original page has no recommendations, but if you wanted to also test that as an option, you could leave this split across all three evenly. Now click the Edit button for one of the variants. You'll be taken to an editor that will allow you to make changes to the page. For testing static text and layout changes, you do that with this editor, but since we're testing dynamic results served from recommendations, we need to populate the page dynamically from our Cloud function. In this case, we have an empty div right below the main product section. Click the Add Code button on the top right and select Global JavaScript. For this example, we'll assume that you have a Cloud function or other endpoint that can return recommendations from an AJAX request, as shown in the last video. So we'll add some JavaScript here to populate the empty div with recommendations when the experiment variant is used. Your exact JavaScript will need some customization depending on your environment, but here we have the placement name, similar items, the product ID is populated from the data layer, and the visitor ID is from Google Analytics. We have a simple XML HTTP request here that passes these parameters to our Cloud function and then puts the results into our empty div with the ID rex. Once you click Apply, the JavaScript code will be saved and executed, and you'll see the results in the editor page. Click Save if that looks good. Do the same for the other variant. The only difference in this case is the placement ID. We'll use the product details placement here. Edit your page targeting rule here. Currently, it is the specific URL that we used for testing, but in most cases, you will want to run the experiment on all product pages. Depending on your site, you may need to do a regex or pattern here to match all product pages. In my case, I'll just use a regex that matches. You can then test it with some sample product pages and then save. For objectives, we'll set a primary objective of revenue, and then we'll set a secondary objective of recommendations click, which is an event we have set up in Google Analytics. There are a few other settings you can change here if necessary, but those are the typical settings for an experiment like this. Once everything looks good, click Start and your experiment will be live. You can verify it's working on the actual site. While your experiment is running or when it's complete, you can view the high-level results in the Optimize reporting view. And for more detailed reports, you can click on the Google Analytics report that was generated for this particular experiment.